Hey, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about fiat currencies and what that is. Fiat currencies are government issued currencies that are not backed by physical commodities like gold, silver, or other perhaps projects that government's trying to do by backing their currencies against the land, against the oil, or either way. So those fiat currencies are just paper and trust. Instead, their value is deemed from the trust and confidence that people have in the government that issue them. They're just a trust, basically. Nothing else, just paper, ink, and trust, I guess. These currencies are considered legal tender, which means that they must be accepted as a form of payment for goods and services within that issuing country. I have covered that already, but for government to issue currency, most of the time they need to contact a private company. That a private company would give that government a lot of paper currency with the interest, right? So there's a private company who give, depending on how much country want, with interest, they would give more than that country can pay back, right? So that's a very interesting business model to operate out there. But either way, so that's how currency is issued with interest, which currency itself is not backed against anything other than it's just ink and paper, right? Let's take a look at some key characteristics and points to understand about fiat currencies. Government issued fiat currencies are typically issued and regulated by country's central bank or government. So once a private company issuing that currency, it gives the country's central bank or overall government, and then government regulates that. Not that much on paper, as you probably know. Most of the currencies and all the transactions are being done on digital platforms, right? So it's not that much on the paper. So basically, they just go on the keyboard and they say that we have transfer, and there's nothing else more to it other than sometimes it could be on paper, but in comparison, that not much transactions have been taking place on paper. Examples include US dollar, euro, Japanese yen, and British pounds. Just some of the examples, right? And most of the currencies, I don't know, you can do more your own research, you can do more homework yourself to understand it, but most of the transactions have been taking on computers, wiring processes. Lack of intrinsic value. Unlike commodities like gold, silver, fiat currencies have no intrinsic value. They are essentially pieces of paper or digital representation with no inherent worth. So they're not the paper or those numbers they do not really worth anything other than perhaps interest and something that you need to pay back later. Legal tender. Fiat currencies are recognized as legal tender, meaning they must be accepted for transactions within the country's borders. Business and individuals are required to accept them as a form of payment according to the law. Perhaps it's worth noting that I have seen some videos of people burning money. Most people might know of that by burning money. So if one person decides to burn money, they would increase value of the money. I don't know if it's worth mentioning for people out there who understands it. They would increase money that you have. So the more people would burn more money, the more value of the money that you have based on supply and demand would have in your wallet, right? That's how it works. So that, but it's against the law, so you cannot burn money. So it's against the law. I think those people I have seen, they got in trouble for doing that. Controlled by central banks. Central banks have the authority to control the money supply, which allows them to influence factors like inflation and interest rates. They can print more money or withdraw it from circulation as needed to manage the economy. Uh, Central banks, so I don't want to confuse anyone. I think it's Federal Reserve, and Federal Reserve is a private company, not central bank. As Federal Reserve, there was a legal action taken against Federal Reserve with freedom of information, referencing different timestamp, right, where Federal Reserve was required to disclose some information as a government company, and Federal Reserve refused to do that just because it's not a government company, it's a private company. So they not necessarily need to obey particular laws or required for most of the government companies when disclosing information. That's Freedom of Information Act, right? So Federal Reserve has more. That's a private company. I don't want to mix the two things. Which is central bank is completely different. That's a government company. So Federal Reserve, right, can give currency to its central bank. From what I understand, Federal Reserve can give to the central government, and then central banks have authority to control the money supply, which allows them to influence factors like inflation and interest rates. They can print more money or withdraw it from circulation as needed to manage the economy. But it's before then it's managed by Federal Reserve, which is a private company, right? Exchange rates, fiat currencies can be exchanged for other currencies on the foreign exchange markets. Exchange rates influence based on various factors, including economic conditions, interest rates, and geopolitical events. Inflation. One of the challenges with fiat currencies is the potential for inflation, which occurs when there's an increase of money supply without a corresponding increase in production of goods and services. Inflation can erode the purchasing power of currencies over time. Perhaps if you do understand, this is what's currently happening with there's a more supply of money, and that there's a market correction. People can define it like that. Whereas the more money in circulation, then perhaps a lot of money will lose of its buying power, right? Digital and physical forms. While fiat currencies traditionally exist in physical banknotes and coins, many transactions today occur electronically. Most money exists in a digital form, and bank deposits and digital currencies in people's accounts. I don't know percentage wise, what is it? Perhaps 2%, 5%, 10% might be physical coins and notes, and about 90% or even more, things are changing, right? How much actual notes you're having in your pocket, things are changing, right? So it might be, and there's some who would argue that we are moving away from having physical gold into perhaps notes, and from notes we're moving to digital currencies, right? Some would argue. I don't know if it's ideal, but it's overall progression, right? Fiat currencies are vulnerable to counterfeiting. Physical fiat currencies can be counterfeited, leading to governments to use various security features to deter counterfeiters. I have done a little bit of research on that and some of the interesting people and how they did it. So it's constantly moving area, and there are a lot of people who did a lot of work on this particular area. National identity. Fiat currencies often feature national symbols, historical figures, or cultural elements that reflect on identifying the history of the issuing country. International reserves. Some countries hold significant amounts of foreign fiat currencies as part of the international reserves to facilitate trade and financial stability. Or depending of what's happening within the markets, they might want to reduce international reserves against other currencies. It depends, right? For those of you who are interested in learning more, I'm currently covering a lot of areas, focusing on currencies and store of value, some of the issues and obstacles that you might find in the market. Either way, if you were to start a business, one of the reasons why you would like to do it is to understand how the money works. That's a starting block. Well, that's some of the series that I'm doing right now. But before that, I have shared a lot of information of the mindset and some of the areas that I personally believe are important before starting the business. Then you have existing business as well as you looking to invest in different businesses. Those areas are very important to understand, and I'm covering all of those areas in this particular book. I'm using it a very simple general knowledge of the concepts, and this is how I'm starting every chapter. From there, I'm progressing in very complex and and some of the complex ideas that I'm trying my best to explain to people out there. You can find this book in the description below, as well as Top Readers has it. It's important to note that the value of fiat currencies can be influenced by a variety of economic, political, and social factors, and they are subject to fluctuations in exchange rates and potential devaluation. Nevertheless, they remain the dominant form of currency in the most countries around the world. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next one.